This episode, we're going to be talking about the recent Citation CJ3 accident that happened in Pasco, Washington. 9 people on board, 1 pilot, and we're also going to be talking about sterile cockpit, which is how this played into it, and then we're going to be talking about the new NBA conference, which is coming up in a few weeks' time in Orlando, and their focus on flight safety once and for all. They've obviously been watching BizJet TV. So, welcome to BizJet TV. My name is Fabrizio Paul. I'm your aviation advisor. Lots of content here about business aviation. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. Give us a thumbs up and comment below. This helps the algorithm let everybody know about BizJet TV, which is the home of private aviation here on the internet. So, and of course, remember my articles in Avbuyer magazine. You can click on the link below. It'll take you to a number of interviews I've been doing recently with pilot owners and their take on why they bought a private jet, why they use private jets. So let's get into today's episode about the accident on the Citation CJ3. This happened just recently on the 20th of September. The airplane was coming in, 9 passengers on board, 1 pilot, and it came over the threshold at 140 knots, which was quite fast. Should have been over the threshold at just over 100 knots. And landed on its belly, so the landing gear was not down, and it scraped all the way down the runway, and sparks and that, as you can see, the airplane then exploded. Fortunately, all 9 passengers and the pilot got out before the airplane exploded and burst into flames, and the fire brigade then arrived and put the fire out. But there was no radio call from the pilot to say that the airplane had a problem or was in an emergency situation. So this tells me that the pilot forgot to put the landing gear down. Now, how could a pilot forget to bring the landing gear down? And why was the pilot coming in at 140 knots over the threshold? Well, interesting thing we can see with 9 passengers, the CJ3 is not a very big aircraft. So with 9 passengers, one of the passengers was sitting up front with the pilot. And that passenger may have been distracting the pilot. And this is where the sterile cockpit comes into it. Now, those of you that aren't pilots won't know what a sterile cockpit is. And those of you that are pilots that don't know what a sterile cockpit is, you should know what it is. But anyway, if you don't, I'm going to explain what a sterile cockpit is. Now, basically in the airlines, we're trained in a certain way. When we're below 10,000 feet, we don't talk to each other, pilot-wise, unless we're talking about the specific flight or the safe conduct of the flight. So usually, as the aircraft goes below 10,000 feet, the pilots will signal to the flight attendants either by saying 10 minutes to landing or by chiming the seatbelt sign, ding dong, which tells them that we are now below 10,000 feet. They would have then checked the cabin and then call in and say, cabin secure, which is part of the checklist. Once we get the cabin secure, we can then land the plane. We can't land the plane if we haven't got cabin secure. If we don't get cabin secure, we have to go around. So, you know, the flight attendants will know once they hear that signal or they hear the PA, they will know that they have to make sure the cabin is secure and then make that call to the pilots. And then the pilots will, if they're chatting about the ball game or about problems with the wife or the girlfriend, that chit-chat needs to stop. And the only chit-chat that's going to be done below 10,000 feet in the sterile cockpit situation will be checklists, the procedure, talking to air traffic control, and anything relevant to the flight, the safe operation of the flight. That's really, really important. So here, the pilot wasn't disciplined enough or didn't know what a sterile cockpit is. And as a result of all this, came in fast and forgot the landing gear. So obviously the pilot was distracted. In this situation, the good thing is that all the people managed to get out safely in one piece without even being injured. So that's the good thing. So obviously problems here with training and that need to be addressed. And this is what's happening at the new NBA conference happening in a few weeks' time in Orlando. The NBA are going to be fostering flight safety. Which, you know, finally, they've obviously been watching BizJet TV, and I've been talking about this for the last 3 years, and explaining that the safety record in private aviation is 9.2 times worse than the airlines. That means you're paying 10 times more for your flight on a Learjet to take you from, I don't know, Los Angeles to Dallas. You've got 10 times more chance of crashing than if you fly with Delta or United or one of the airlines. So the focus is going to be on this with 18 sessions about mitigating risks involving common accidents. So looking at the commonalities of various accidents. There's also going to be a number of sessions about ways to support mental health awareness. And that's another issue which is surfacing. And I hope they're going to be talking about pilot fatigue as well. because that's another problem which is causing a lot of accidents. Now, next thing, you've been watching BizJet TV and you probably said, Fab, you've been covering all these Citation accidents. The Citation must be a very dangerous aeroplane. Now, first of all, the different Citations that have crashed lately, and yes, over the last 2 to 3 years, there have been quite a few Citation crashes. And so you're thinking, well, this must be a difficult aeroplane to fly. Well, actually, it's the opposite. And this is probably why the accidents have happened. The Citations are slow aeroplanes and they're easy to fly. I was surprised when I got my type rating in the Citation. I remember my first takeoff in the Citation, obviously, but the way the aeroplane handled it wasn't much different to the smaller propeller aircraft that I've been flying. Yes, of course, now you're up at 35,000 feet. You've got to plan your descent. There's certain things in place and you need to be trained in a certain way. But, don't let the simplicity of the Citation bite you. Because I think this is what's happened here. Because it's a slow aeroplane and that, I think pilots have got a bit lax. And this is where the accidents end up happening. So it's really important to be trained in a certain way. Your checklists are important. Standard operating procedures, even if you're flying on your own, are really, really important. Things like your sterile cockpit, things like stabilized approach. Obviously, this airplane was not on a stabilized approach, because if it was, it wouldn't have been at 140 knots over the threshold. So these are things that need to be part of your training, but also part of your discipline. Now, I know when you're in a small flight department, and I've been there myself, and you just got 1 or 2 airplanes, and you're flying with the same people all the time, things can get a bit lax, and under 10,000 feet, you're still talking about the ball game. But you need to be professional and say, sterile cockpit, let's focus on the task at hand and focus on landing this airplane safely. We can talk about the ball game at lunch later on. So these are really, really important things. And I think this is what's played into this accident and other accidents as well. The good thing here is that all 10 occupants managed to leave the airplane in one piece. Unfortunately, the airplane is a write-off. And that's another statistic that the insurance companies will look at. When they're going to insure people to fly the airplane, they're going to look at these accidents and they're probably going to bump up the insurance. So training is key and being disciplined in order to be safe. Really, really important. So if you haven't subscribed to BizJet TV, subscribe to this channel. Check out this other video about this other Citation accident that happened a few weeks ago. It's an interesting one, my take on that one. And give us a thumbs up and comment below. Love to hear from you. And that's all from Political Party on BizJet TV. And I'll see you on the next one.